I go into the speakers this evening, just a couple of notices. Could I give a plug for the Oxford weekend coming up on the 16th to the 18th of September? There are some places left and day places as well. It's a good weekend, it's good fun, a very good program. The June theme scene has all the details, so if you would like to come, could you let Anne know fairly quickly, please? But it's all in theme scene. I think you agree it's a good program. Our next Zoom meetings are on Wednesday, July the 13th, when Keith Burton is going to be talking about viaducts. And if you want to get his displeasure, you call them aqueducts like I did and was told quite correctly that they are viaducts. I look forward to hearing about the difference. And on Tuesday, August the 9th, Mike Blackman is talking about umbrellas, and we're certainly looking forward to that. Then there'll be a couple of months gap. There aren't any Zoom meetings in September or October. Could I also give a small plug for the BTA one frame competition at Ardingly on the 15th of October? Again, there's details in theme scene in June's edition. That's going ahead. And lastly, and not leastly, can I thank John and Wendy for all their support in putting this and other Zooms together. Okay, so we're going to start, and sadly we can't start with Peter. So we'll start, if it's okay, Mark, with your good self. And Mark is going to be talking about Arctic and Antarctic orchids. So looking forward to hearing that. Okay, Mark, all yours.
Okay, I've got to share my screen with you all. So that's the first step. And hopefully you will soon be seeing this. Okay, should be there. Is that there? Can you see it, Barry? Yep. Okay, so
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, so the idea of this little display was to do something that was a bit unlikely, which was orchids in polar places, polar regions. And that's mainly because most of us assume that they are temperate or tropical plants, but amazingly, they do grow inside the Arctic Circle, and some others are found just about inside the Arctic Circle as well. Unfortunately, they're so small, nobody's ever thought to put them on a stamp. So the first unlikely orchid, as you can see, is actually a German one, and it's Cypridium calceolus, a very common orchid across Europe, and it ended up being used on a postage card that the Belgian-Dutch Antarctic expedition had in the summer of 1964. Not our summer, of course, but the summer at the South Pole. And you can see that from the postmark date, because it was posted on the 23rd of the 1st. And in typical Belgian style, they said it was posted at the South Pole, which is a bit of a lie. And that postcard was sent to Freiburg. And if you can see it, I don't know how good the resolution will be on your screen, but you should be able to see that it actually says West Deutschland, which is a bit weird. Maybe some Belgian had written it. So that's the first bit. The second part of this part of the display are two Australian stamps, which many people, I guess, will be familiar with. They will have seen them around. This is a very famous representation of an emu, but underneath its tail feathers, there's actually an orchid. And the one that's there is called Thalimitra aristate. Very common orchid of kind of the plain areas of Central Australia. But in the period when the Australians were first going to their Antarctic territory. So this would be, as you can see from the dates, 1948, 1949. There wasn't any Antarctic stamps that were specially minted for the Australian areas. So they had to use national issues. And bizarrely, on two covers, there are these orchids. So the one on the top posted to London was from an island called Macquarie Island, and the ANARE prefix is the Australian National Antarctic Research Expeditions. And then the second one is from another one of these little tiny islands. This is Heard Island, same sort of thing, same orchid, same sort of postmark, but this one was posted at Atlas Cove on Heard Island. These really are quite rare because the total number of individuals who went to these stations was about 14 rather than 50 or 100. So there just wasn't very many, and they would have had to have taken the stamps with them to post them there. Okay, so that's the first one. Any questions, I suppose, would be appropriate. Anybody got anything they want to say? You'd have to unmute yourself, Barry. I saw the lips moving.
Yeah, I suddenly realised as I was starting the question that I hadn't unmuted. Yes. So roughly how many species are there in these parts of the world? Just one or two, or more than that?
There's inside the Antarctic Circle.
Yes.
Two.
Two. Okay. I've never heard of them, I must admit.
Okay. Well, no, these two you could have heard of, because these are quite common, but they're not from Antarctica. That's the point.
Yes.
But this is the landscape of Macquarie Island, as you can see. So it's a volcanic island occupied by great big sea lions, whatever they are. It's difficult to tell. I'm not a great animal person. I'm much more of an orchid kind of guy. The plants on the right hand side are not orchids, but in amongst that area that you can see in the second stamp, the one that looks like lakes and grassland, in there is Nematocerus dianemon and salcatum, and they are really enormous. They are about 50 millimeters high. So you can work it out for yourself. The biggest plants recorded are 5 centimeters, so they are not very big. However, that's not to say that some orchids don't end up inside of Antarctica. Now, the New Zealanders have got their own station, and bizarrely, it's called Vanda Station. Vanda being a very, very popular kind of orchid. And so this is a cover that was sent to a chap who lived at Gatchina, which is in the Leningrad Oblast, and this was sent to the USSR. So this is like a bona fide kind of bit of correspondence, and posted in the Ross Dependency. So that's the section of the South Pole that the New Zealand state kind of, I don't know what you would call it, claim. And 1981, so it's already quite old, I suppose. And the Orchid Conference that was going on in New Zealand at the time had a single postage stamp, one with Arena autumnalis. I guess you can guess it's the autumn orchid. And then another one of these Thalymitria, but this one is Venosa. The postmark in the center actually gives you a kind of a radial map of the South Pole, and you can see Scott Base, and you can also see this other place that they were using in the Ross Dependency, the Vanda Base. Okay, so don't suppose there'd be any more questions with that one. Barry will probably be surprised how many there are inside the Arctic Circle, because there's between 10 and 15, depending on which research book you look at, of orchids that actually live within inside the Arctic Circle. I think the key thing to remember is that the Arctic is significantly warmer than Antarctica. Antarctica is an island surrounded by a sea, and it is almost entirely dry. It's like an enormous desert, whereas the Arctic is a sea surrounded by many peninsulas and islands that reach out into it. So it's a completely different kind of landscape. And because we just see them as North and South Pole, we don't necessarily comprehend the difference between them. So the result of that is that there are orchids found in Greenland, Canada, Norway, Russia, and the USA. And even the Aleutian Islands, the ones that stretch from Alaska all the way down almost to, well, actually into Russia, they have their own species of orchids. And that's why it gets really difficult to decide how many there really are. So to start off with, here are some Greenland Arctic orchids. The top picture is the cover of a stamp booklet issued for the visit of Queen Margrethe of Denmark. So she was there touring around, and this was the booklet issued. The landscape these orchids are found in, and that's why the little pane is there, is so that you can see it's this kind of fjordland habitat that where these orchids are found. And the three different ones in this sort of mini sheet or pane is Amororchis rotundifolia, Corallohoisia trifida, and Planthera hyperborean. They are found all the way across Greenland, all the way across Baffin Island, all the way up to Alaska. So they are very widespread, but they are obviously very well adapted to this landscape and this habitat. And then the last bit of this is the sparrow's egg lady's slipper. So this is an American orchid, mainly found in Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, and in the northern parts of Canada. And obviously, as you can see, it's quite an attractive orchid, and they get to be quite large, maybe as much as 25 to 30 centimeters high, and they bear this one slipper-like flower. And the reason I put these in, because I thought this was a real stamp collection kind of feature, because it's actually all the same orchid. The three at the top are the three definitive booklets between 1977 and 79. So 77, the blue one is 78, and then the green colored one is 79. All of those were printed by the British American Banknote Company. But the stamps underneath are the same series of issues, 77, 78, and 79, but the blocks kind of changed as the years went on. So you get one that's only perfed 12, 12 and a half, and then the next one 13, 13 and a half, and the last one is printed by the American Banknote Company, so a completely different printer. And even in this representation, you can see the difference in the color, because the last one is in photogravure and the others are all in lithography. So that's enough, I guess. I'm still looking for some other orchids that are used on stamps in Antarctica, but they're all South African. Yeah.
I have a question, Mark.
Who's talking?
One of the, sorry, it's John talking.
Oh,
okay. John. I have a question. One of the orchids had the suffix trifida or trifida.
Yeah.
And as a keen student of science fiction, that immediately made me think of triffids.
Yeah.
which terrified me as a boy when I read that book, and I've never liked plants ever since. Um, what do you know? Is there a link with? Is it where they name?
They're
Do you know
named
if
for
there is
the
any
three.
link with the triffids?
They're named for having three parts: Triffidia, as in three leaves, or three
Okay.
blooms, or three whatever it happens to be. So all the
So
ones
there's
with
no-
that prefix in it, and the triffids, well, that's what they had as well.
Right. Okay. So it's just
It's
the
just a
it's
normal
not.
Latin
There's no
prefix.
literary link between them, right? Okay,
Unfortunately, not.
that's good to know. See, I must have skipped over the Latin explanation when I read the book as a teenager. But
I don't think they put it in the book.
wow, there. Okay, great. Well, that's me relieved. That's brilliant.
Come on, then. There must be some more questions.
Well, Les has got his hand up.
Yeah, I was interested. Are they finding more because they're looking harder, or the climate is changing? Climate change of the world is.
The thing about orchids is that they inhabit every inhabitable bit of land somewhere along the line, and consequently, as people have explored more and more, explored with greater detail, so they've discovered that things they'd looked at previously have actually got much more varied flora than they had assumed. So these islands in the very edge of Antarctica are incredibly windswept. I mean, you're talking Southern Ocean winds of 70, 80 miles sustained for days and days and days. And these orchids, are literally just a few millimeters high. So you have to be out there for a long time. The main reason they found them on Macquarie is because they had an infestation of rats. And so the Australians decided they had to remove them. And so they were going over it literally centimetre by centimetre.
Anything else for Mark?
Pardon?
So
Any
any
more?
other questions for you?
Any more? Come on, some more hands. Otherwise, all this wouldn't have been worth the effort. Don't forget, I've got a room full of stuff here to choose from and to pick out just these weird little things for Antarctica and the Arctic. It's hard work. Days and days of study.
Well, it looks like we've run dry of questions.
Ah,
Well,
okay.
thank you very much for that, Mark. That was quite interesting. Could we show our appreciation in the usual way, please?
Cheers.
Okay. Can we try Peter once more?
Yeah. Any joy this time?
Yes.
Oh, marvelous. Yeah. It seemed to be working offline, but it's so I don't know what I've done, but anyway, I've gone and switched everything off and switched it all back on again.
Yeah.
So
Can you put your video on, perhaps?
so
Can't see your camera.
yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Well, I switched that off while I was looking at all sorts of YouTube people telling you to make sure you've unmuted yourself and all this helpful stuff.
Yes.
Anyway, so which I had done, but there you go.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, well, yeah. Will this work? That's the other thing. Share screen. I just hit share screen. Yeah. Oh, I've got to get me. Are you seeing anything?
No, not yet.
No.
Not yet, but it will. I'm sure it will come.
No. No joy.
Share screen requires 2 clicks. The
Ah.
first is the green share screen, and then it pops open a box that asks you to select what screen you're sharing, and then you have to click share again in the bottom right of that box.
my PowerPoint now, though. Yeah, lost my PowerPoint now. Right, so we'll get PowerPoint back up again.
I was particularly interested in this one, Peter, because I believe it's coming with free samples.
if we could shows share screen, double share screen, it's and share again.
Oh, yeah, looks promising.
It's asking me to join a live Zoom demo.
Yes, we don't want to do that.
No,
Down the, there you go. We've got that now.
you've got it. Guinness and the philatelist. Hooray!
Yes.
Honestly, you've got it.
Yes.
Yes, good, good.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see that.
Right.
If you put it on slideshow, Peter.
And it's now and then give better presentations. Try it. Rehearse with a coach.
No, don't do that. No, don't do that. If you go to the far left and press from beginning.
From beginning. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we should get, there we go. We can see a whole screen. You might not be able to, you might be able to see us, Peter, but we can see you.
Good. Oh, I don't know. That's
or we can see the screen.
You can see the screen. You can see the screen. Marvelous. We've got there. Well, back in 2003, I think I'm getting feedback. Back in 2003, I entered the BTA Cup, and well, I have to say I won one frame exhibit. And after at my frame or after the exhibit, John Hayward was chatting to me, and I don't think he was one of the judges, but he said, "Well, what a cheek that you won, because you didn't show anything for Guinness." And my answer was, well, I haven't got anything for Guinness except the published stamps, which we'll come to. And while we were chatting, there was a lady there, well, you'll see her name, Barbara Roberts, overheard us talking and said, "Oh, I was very interested in this display because I collect Ireland and I'm very interested. Was it one of yours, you see?" And I owned up and said it was. And she'd overheard us. So she said, "Oh, I've got something about Guinness. Would you like it?" And obviously you never refused. So I said, yes, I would. And that's what she sent me. So my first Guinness item, or second Guinness item, was this one with the PPI, where it's a pint of Guinness, which is brilliant. And I think the only reason they stopped using that was because I think the post office wanted everyone to have the same sort of PPI design. So you wanted it to be standardized. But so that's how I started. Now the one on the other side is interesting because it's the perfin of G, and I've specifically said the 19-hole type because these are in 1930. This is the first printing. It's the first definitives with the SE watermark, Free State of Ireland, Sarstat Éireann. And when these stamps were then printed on the E watermark paper, so post-war, there was a different G with 15 holes. And that is a shilling and a sixpence is a parcel rate, and it's a parcel cancellation. And so what we can be clear about is that what Guinness are doing there is sending a pack of bottle labels to someone who's purchased, because if you were a approved bottler or exclusive bottler, you bottled no other brown stout other than Guinness, then you got the official trademark labels, and that's what they're sending there. And just as a matter of interest, of course, when I was writing this up, I thought that would be a brilliant item actually for a golf thematic, wouldn't it? Because the 19th hole is the bar when you've finished, and so it's a 19 hole, and it's Guinness in the bar. So I just leave that one with you for any golf collectors out there. Whoops, so getting onto things. Oh, well, taking things, serious bit of postal history, really. These great for thematic collectors is the Mulready advertising Mulreadys, because they're advertising all sorts of different things. But of course, this one, when I saw it, I had to, well, I was lucky enough to get in quickly and to get this one, the new envelope select advertiser, because down at the bottom there, and I've blown it up in the middle, you can see they're advertising where you can get Guinness extra stout in London, 61 Edgware Road, and where's the other one, Fitzroy Square. For the real postal history buffs, it's a bit unfortunate that the address on the Mulready is very, either somebody's tried to remove it, rub it out, or it's just got washed out or whatever. But you can just about read it is London. The only vaguely amusing thing is which you can possibly guess, the well-known dealers list that it came from. I've got my sound muted, so I can't hear your answers, but you're all screaming and you'll be correct. It was from Bill Barrell, wasn't it? Had to be, didn't it? Next one again, British Postal Stationery. One of these penny pink wrappers. What I don't know really is whether it's a stamp to order one or whether they've bought a supply and just printed their invoice pro forma on the back there. It's very nicely, very heavily, but nicely cancelled with 186, which is Dublin, in a diamond of bars. And on the inside there, you can see it's the order for 12 hogsheads of Guinness, at 58 and 6 a time. And I had to look this up, and I've got a horrible feeling it's one of these measures that's different in England and Ireland, but the record I've got is it's 52.5 imperial gallons, which is, well, it's a lot of pints really, isn't it? It's quite nice. Next one, I talked about the bottle labels, and again, nice piece of British Postal Stationery reply card, so that Guinness are sending, they're acknowledging that they've just dispatched your labels to you, and there's a card attached to order your next lot, you see. And so you obviously fill it, well, as you can see bottom right, you fill in how much you're ordering and which size bottles you're going to use, and they'll send you the appropriate number of labels. And I say it was, well, we'll see trademark labels in a minute, but if the bottlers were bottling different brewers' brown stouts, then they were allowed to actually have their own design of labels. Guinness had to approve them, mind you, but label collecting is another matter. We won't go there, well, not tonight anyway. But bottle label, and then come to 1959. We're leaping ahead rather, but that was the bicentenary of Guinness, and I mean, it's quite unusual, really, perhaps to have what is really a commercial company back in 1959 being advertised on a stamp. Really, I mean, I suppose it's very important, but I don't know how often that's happened. And Guinness themselves decided that they would send out a presentation pack to all shareholders, and it went out inside a first day cover to shareholders. I think they did other ones addressed to themselves, which were then given to all the employees. I've read that, but I have to be honest, I've never actually seen one like that. Mostly they're addressed to the shareholders. So, then the last one is that year, there were special bottle labels when we get into the bottle label collecting. And as you see there, 1759, 1959. And as you can see at the bottom there, this is the trademark label. It says trademark on the harp, and it specifically says who bottle no other stout or porter, and it was an Irish version of that. And then some enterprising philatelist managed to get one of the first day cover envelopes, and he's done his own. He's got both values and a label on the first day cover, which I think is, well, I think it's rather impressive, that. So I'm very grateful to him. I don't know how it's ended up in my collection, but there you are. Again, something unusual, but I haven't, how many were done? Yeah, I don't know, but let's just say I've never seen another one, so I like that. So that's my introduction to Guinness.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions for Peter? Well, I see a hand somewhere. Yes, Michelle.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation about a drink we all wish we'd received free samples for as part of the presentation. That would have been awesome. We'll have to figure out how to do that virtually. And then
yeah.
Once we do, we'll all be rich. But that's a whole other story. I wanted to capitalize on your thoughts about the fact that a commercial entity was featured on the Irish stamp. And the reason that caught my interest is because I've done a one-page exhibit for the American Topical Association. It's in the gallery of all the exhibits that are now posted on their on the ATA website. And this particular one-page exhibit was about Italy's Olivetti typewriter company. And Italy featured several stamps promoting or touting Olivetti, the owner, as well as the company, the founding of the company, anniversaries and things like that. Even as recently as 20 or so years ago, with a stamp when Olivetti moved into computers, and then there was a computer featured on one of the stamps. So I wonder if you or anyone might know how many countries do that. I'm sure that there are rules. America doesn't seem to cotton to that kind of production, but I wondered how many countries or what other countries are not reticent to produce stamps that might promote the hometown companies.
Right. Yeah, I think yes, it's without having looked for it. I think there have been some for food products and drink products, I think, haven't they, where they've actually named the product, but much more recently, not back in '59. In recently, the best I can do I have got a little. Can you see that little bottle on the camera? Because there are miniatures of one of the collectible. Because Guinness is a huge collecting area, but of course, being a stamp collector, I stick normally with two-dimensional things. So it's got to be paper, but that exception for the little bottles like that.
Okay. Anything else for Peter? Oh, Mark, you've got your hand up.
Just to answer the question that was asked of Peter, there's lots of countries do these things, and I'm always interested in ones with ice cream. And lots of ice cream companies have been allowed to make their own stamps with nice ice cream products depicted on it. And the best one is a South African one, because you get the complete van and the whole lot. So there's quite a number of them around.
Okay.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Barry, I have a silly question, because I always ask silly questions. Peter, in my local Home Bargains, they're selling Nigerian Guinness, which is imported. Apparently, is extra strong.
Yeah.
Have there been any Nigerian stamps featuring their exported Guinness, or has Guinness featured on any Nigerian stamps? Because surely that's something to to add a little bit of depth to the diaspora collection?
Well, yes, I mean, Nigeria was a huge market, you know, actually, and they've got a, well, as you've said, but they've had a brewery there for a long, long time. I haven't got that. I have, because this has started me writing up, and there may be an open class exhibit at Stampex if I can keep writing up. I have got a cachet from the Nigerian brewery, yes, but not, I don't know about a stamp. There is, funnily enough, yes, I've got cachets from 2 countries. Belgium, well, they're a huge beer place, aren't they? And Nigeria. Those are the 2 countries where I've got Guinness cachets. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, I really wasn't expecting you to answer that seriously.
Yeah.
That's great. That's brilliant.
Well,
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that, John. Liz, here was the question.
I would say that in 1959, Guinness was such a major industry in Ireland that it was given the 200th anniversary gift of stamps. So I would say it was because of the importance of it to the economy.
oh, yes, definitely. Very much so. The number who were employed at brewery and so on. Yes, it was, and through the country. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Well, some of us would say it's a gift to the world, including myself. Len, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, it's just a further comment on the publicity stamps. Closer to home, Britain, of course, did that blatant British Leyland ad in the British Technology series, showing a Jaguar E-Type and a Mini.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Unless there's a last question. Okay, can we show our appreciation in the usual way for Peter, please? Thank you very much, Peter. Right, looking at my list, I think Gary's up next.
Yep. See if I can get the screen up. Okay.
We can see that, Gary, but we can see it in PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to, I've got this thing across the top of my screen. I've moved it now. You got there? Can you see that?
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay, I'll move that thing to the bottom. It's there, to the top. Try that. Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is share with you some thoughts of my collection of the Eiffel Tower and the way in which its souvenirs have developed in terms of postal ideas over the time period. But this is just an introductory thing. If I could just put this in perspective, the Eiffel Tower was built and finished in March 1889 to coincide with the opening of the 4th Paris Universal Exposition, which opened on the 6th of May. The tower itself didn't open to the public till the 15th of May, and the elevators were not in use for a further week. So those brave people who were strong enough to climb and mount the stairways to the top of the tower, I think did so in about 20,000 individuals. However, during the June period, before I go to that, to the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see an image of what was the Le Figaro stand on the 2nd level of the tower, 2nd platform. And that was there to illustrate its printing prowess, and it also produced a daily newspaper which acted as a souvenir where people could add their name and the date they visited. But the paper also published news items about the tower and the events going on, and also people's letters that happened to be written in. In fact, one tourist from Italy called Dino Matto wrote in June, complaining that there was a lack of souvenir postcards and a lack of facility to post such things on the tower itself. The Figaro published this, and the powers that be have set about putting in place post boxes, writing desks, and eventually a specific postcard for people to use as a souvenir to post back to wherever they came from or to their friends and relatives. This was announced in the middle of July in one of their news sheets, and the rest of this presentation illustrates some of the private cachets and postcards that were issued as a consequence of this action that was taken. Suffice to say that the tower had a society which organised the economic aspects of the tower itself. Le Figaro was involved in putting all this together, as you will see in the next slide or two. So, oops, let's see if I can move this on. Oops, sorry. Right, the second slide illustrates a plain postcard which was posted on the 28th of June. And if you remember, Le Figaro were announcing their intentions in July. So this postcard contains a cachet, or has a cachet attached, added to it, representing the third stage, i.e. the top of the tower, dated the 28th of June. So this was an early private cachet added to a plain postcard. The postcard itself was posted outside of the tower and doesn't actually have the universal postmark on it. And it was sent to a hotel and with a message on the reverse, which in part said a little remembrance of where we have been today. Now, I have not seen any earlier examples of an added cachet, and I've only seen one example of this particular cachet. I'd be interested to hear from others if they've seen or heard of others in this particular time frame. The next slide shows the development of a more purposeful cachet added to plenty of plain postcards, which began to appear in early July and represent the visitation again to the third stage or third platform. And this shows that some were posted at the exposition, some were posted outside of the exposition, posted to different parts of the world. Oops. Sorry. Powers that be introduced a series of squared cachet marks in 3 different colours to represent each of the 3 different stages. So you had a blue for the first, a black for the second, and a red stamped on your card for the third. So postcards were sold at the different levels, and the cachets were stamped on the cards at the buyer's choice as to whether they appeared on the front or back. It would appear, and the cards could be posted on the tower and they would attract the exposition council. So those are the 3 pretty much official ones that appeared. There were other private ones that appeared and can be found. Some of them are 2-line words, Tour Eiffel. Some are coloured images of the tower itself of different sizes. And there are some examples there of the ones that were posted again on the tower receiving the exposition council. This preceded the final, the most famous postcard in the world, I imagine, which is that of the Eiffel Tower itself, which is renowned as the Liebig card. It was designed by an engraver called Leon Charles Liebig. He in fact designed 5 other images for postcards. I'm not showing any of those here. He also designed a 6th image which appears on the reverse of envelopes that were related to correspondence letters, which also carried the 6 different designs. What is of interest to me with this particular card, which I spotted on Dell Camp as it happens, that it's dated the 20th of August. The earliest release of cards was supposedly around the 16th of August, And on the official website of the tower itself, it claims that the earliest card it has sight of is the 21st of August. So indeed, this may be one of the most early cards in existence. Although 300,000 of these cards were printed, obviously not everybody who visited bought one, but they continued in use beyond August, and you will find examples used even into 1891 and so on. This is where I'm going to conclude, but by saying this is just a brief introduction to the whole range of souvenir cachets, types and labels and other things, slogan postmarks that exist as souvenirs of one's visitation to the Eiffel Tower, which carries on for another 132 years, and you can imagine an awful lot of material. There I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. That was most interesting. A beautiful piece of engraving, isn't it? That luminous depiction of the Eiffel Tower. That's really lovely. Even on the screen, it looks here. It looks.
It's fascinating because there are 5 other postcards, and although this is considered a kind of rare card, it's not that rare in comparison with the others. The others are much rarer.
Yeah, beautiful work, beautiful work. Okay, I'll just let John take that down. And any questions for Gary?
Actually, Gary needs to stop sharing his screen for it to go because he's sharing it. If that's okay, Gary.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stop share. There we are.
Great stuff.
There we go.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Gary? Not by the looks of it. I was quite interested. I have a few Eiffel Tower postcards in my own postcard collection, and some of them were most interesting ones. But
well, I'd certainly be interested to hear if anyone's got any cards with those types of cachets on that are different to the ones I've shown.
Yeah, I must admit mine haven't. But the important question is, do you get Guinness up there? That's the thing.
I'm sure you can in the restaurants.
Okay, last opportunity. No, anybody thought of anything? No. Okay, can we show our appreciation of Gary?
Yeah, I've got.
Oh, sorry, I do beg your pardon. John has got one.
Sorry. Yeah, a question. You know the cachets for each floor. Did anyone go along and get one of the cards from the first floor, then go up to the second floor and ask them to put a stamp on it, and then go up to the third floor and ask them to put a stamp on that?
I imagine they may well have done. I haven't actually seen examples of all 3 cachets on one card, although I have seen an example of at least 2 on one card.
Okay. Did I see somebody ask a question there? I don't see a hand going up. No. Okay, can we this time show Gary our appreciation? Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you.
Great stuff, which I think that takes us to Les.
Hi there. Right, John. That's, ladies and gentlemen. So that's interesting. Always a good sign when you can't see your screen that you were previously sharing. Why is it not sharing a screen? Try again. Here we go.
That's a bit more successful. We can see your, yep, we can see it there.
Yep. Can you just see the slide? You can't see my presenter view.
No, we can see your presenter view.
Right, so I need to swap the screen. How about that?
Oh, now we can see just the slide. Yep, that's great.
Perfect. Great. Right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My 5 slides are on a scientist, Justus Liebig, born in 1803, a German scientist. He's considered by many as the founder of organic chemistry, and particularly did work in distillations and finding and getting nitrates, and sometimes also described as the father of the fertilizer industry. He's famous for developing a process for making extract of beef. And you might think, oh, what does that mean? Thinking of the company he created, or from his work, created the OXO brand cube, which was actually promoted as beef tea. I've shown the picture there, his portrait, and his condensing tube, which is still used today and still called the Liebig condenser, which is essentially where you condense gas using water going round the container with the gas in it. What you can also see in the picture is a Liebig trading card. And certainly I'm sure many of you will come across it in your own thematic collections. And if anyone's looking for images or perhaps stories on a thematic theme, it's worth looking for Liebig, because there are some absolutely beautiful imagery and sometimes some pictures that you may not be able to find on stamps or on covers. Normally they're in issue sets of 6, but I have seen sets of 12 as well in terms of doing it. However, now let's look at some stamps. There were 4 stamps produced with Liebig on, unsurprisingly, all from Germany. The first one in 1953 was for his 150th anniversary of his birth. The second one in 57 was actually the 350th anniversary of his university, originally Liebig's University, but it's now officially known as the Justus Liebig University Gießen. Then an example from East Germany in 78 for the 175th anniversary of his birth. And then finally, I've shown here a first take over maximum card from Germany in 2003, and this was the 200th anniversary of his birth. As I said before, there are the Liebig trading cards, and I'll just show you this set. There are many different cards, and there are websites with large catalogues, and obviously a lot of collectors who collect these trading cards. This one I particularly like because it's actually the life and times of Justus Liebig. So here's 6 trading cards. You can see the little image on each card of the beef extract, the tin of beef extract, which traditionally on their sort of commercial labels actually had his signature. And in fact, if you look at the back of the trading cards, you'll often see a sort of pseudo watermark with that signature in place in terms of doing it. One particular interesting card there is the one on the top right, which actually shows a factory that was created in Uruguay at a place called Fray Bentos. And Fray Bentos may be familiar to some of you. You remember the tinned meat pie products, but there is actually a place in Uruguay called Fray Bentos, which is obviously got used in the trading for the product. In terms of my collection, I can now show you the oldest and the newest item I have with a Liebig connection. The first one is a postal stationery sent in 1904 from Uruguay to Hamburg. And if you look on the bottom left of corner of that, you can actually see a small image of the factory in Fray Bentos. And bizarrely, purely by chance, the stamp that you see on the bottom right was issued in 2006, and it was a set encouraging or showing tourist destinations in Uruguay, And this particular image actually shows the English fridge, which was obviously some engineering and presumably a compressor process to cool the material, the foodstuffs. It was actually used in the Fray Bentos factory. So there's a little image of the English fridge from the Fray Bentos factory. And my last slide are some poster stamps, which are from France and from Belgium, all of different versions of the Liebig product in its various tins. I have also seen, I'm not showing one here this evening, but I've also seen it as advertising on some French stamps. There is a little Liebig potage in the sort of margins of some stamp booklets, and probably just to prove it very much an open exhibit, you'll see the rubber printing, which was actually used. It's actually a little printing stamp, which was actually used to roll onto the product. A little image there of the OXO and the OXO tube. So very much classing as an open class exhibit in my thematic collection. Okay, that's the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Les. That's most interesting. The trading cards, were they sort of given out as advertising souvenirs, or?
My belief is they were they were part of just, you got one when you bought one of the products.
Oh, okay.
So it was in the very much like a Brook Bond tea card.
Yes.
And there are several sets. So if anyone is a thematic collector and is willing to look at sort of non-philatelic type items, there are some amazing, you know, I'm not sure there's an Arctic Orchids. I'm sure there is Eiffel Towers on cards. So not sure about Guinness, interesting one, but certainly I discovered Liebig trading cards through my Leonardo da Vinci interest. It's one of my main collecting theme is Leonardo, and there are various sets produced in Italy with some of the paintings, not least the Mona Lisa, but other sort of examples of Leonardo drawings, and they are rather nice to add amongst images of stamps to bring a different sort of dimension to your exhibit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they do make a nice difference, and an interesting size as well. Very useful size, usually not too big.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep,
and
absolutely.
I've seen them more in the advertising concept, you know, where people would get them shoved through their letterbox, as it were, or given away on the street. And yeah, great. Yeah. Sorry. Any other questions for Les? Okay, I'm not seeing.
Right. Hi, Les. I worked for Liebig's extractor meat company for many years, and I was development manager for OXO latterly. I might have some interesting stuff for you if we can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any final questions for Les? I'm not seeing any hands go up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, can we show our appreciation in the usual way? Thank you very much, Les. Most interesting. Okay, I think I'm going to call it a day there. Time is marching on, as they say. So unless somebody's got some very final thoughts or questions, I'll bring the meeting to a close. I think it's been quite fascinating. We seem to have got through the technical problems, which is great. Thank you all for that and persevering. I found it quite useful, and such a lovely wide range of topics as well. So unless there's a last thought or comment, I shall call it a day. Okay, well, thank you very much, and see you all next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Oh,
Bye.
Bye.